Hello and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Aussie writers and other creatives.
Hello, and I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well, and Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, ideas, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
Hello again, Lynn. How are you? I know you've been super busy writing about screws and roofing this week.
Screws and roofing, it's all glamour.
You haven't called me at all. You've just been too busy.
Oh, yeah, I've had heaps of deadlines. I can't complain, though, because, it's, I'd rather that than having a slow patch, especially in lockdown. And what have you been up to?
Well, this week I have nearly finished a client's website and she really loves it, which is always nice. And I've done some content for a banking client. I'm about to start more careers content for another client. So no rest for the wicket around here. But speaking of content, we have one of the movers and shakers of the content world on the podcast today, which I am very excited about.
We do. And we're very lucky to have Clare Brundle from Hardie, or Heads and Tails, as she'll talk about today. She's a busy woman, and she's actually one of the reasons why I've been so busy this week, writing content for her agency. And so we really appreciate that she's made some time for us. I'll just read a quick bio of Clare so we can get her in the hot seat. So Clare Brundle is a custom publishing and content specialist with more than 20 years experience gained in London, Singapore and Sydney. She's worked on and launched dozens of magazines, guides, books, websites, apps, video series and podcasts for clients based all around the world, mainly in the luxury and travel sector. How nice. How nice.
Lucky you.
As managing director at Hardie Media's new content agency, Heads and Tails, she's going to tell us a bit about that. Clare is responsible for leading the two-city team, growing the business and promoting the agency's network of services to some clients as diverse as Mercedes, Australian Unity, Zoos Victoria, Australian Education Union, and the Art Gallery Society of New South Wales. Clare, welcome. So great to have you on the Content Bite.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Clare, it has been a while, but it is so nice to see you, albeit on Zoom. I think the last time I saw you in person was when you came on to do that cracker session on the pitching masterclass for us. I think that was in 2020, back when we were allowed to actually do events in person. But I still remember bringing Charlie to see you at Hardie because you were giving magazines for the goodie bags, and he was so rude and such a brat about all the books. And then you were so lovely and came downstairs and bought him a muffin from the cafe. I've never forgotten that. So thank you. If I didn't thank you then and just rushed him out the door in huge embarrassment.
Oh, not at all. As a mum of two cheeky young men myself, I completely understand the juggle. And I was really impressed with how you were multitasking in the lead up to a big event.
Yes. Oh, gosh. Bit different now.
It is. I was at that pitching event too. It was great. And your presentation was fantastic, Clare. It was a real deep dive into content and custom publishing and what freelancers need to know in order to work in that world. And I'm sure that a lot of the people that were there that day are listening now, because I think everyone wants to get on the speed dial of a good content agency. And it's something many print journos are looking to do right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. And thanks. It was such a well-organised day with a great lineup and lots of good questions from your members. I particularly remember the lovely Lindy Alexander, who I know has been on the Content Bite, was talking about how to find new business leads on LinkedIn. And I remember everyone in the room madly scribbling notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was good.
Well, I hear all the time, obviously from job seekers at Rachel's List, but also in our goal group as well, that Hardie is just a really lovely and supportive place to work. And having worked for a lot of your editors, I have to concur. And I'm sure that continues with your new initiative, Heads and Tails Agency. So tell us a bit about how that came about and what you do there.
That's right. A bit of background. I've worked at Hardie for 10 years now and can't talk more highly about the company. I personally have been supported through some really big life moments, becoming a mum. I've lost my dad. I had a massive crisis of confidence when I had my second baby, all of which, everything taken in their stride and had great support. they also given me the best opportunities. And the latest is my move to managing director and responsibility for the launch of the new agency, which is Heads and Tails Content Agency. And that's actually what it is. It's a very specialist unit that is a sort of like really deep diving into content as we reposition the Hardie Grant Media broader brand as a network.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of content do you do at Heads and Tails, and why is it different, or how is it different from other agencies?
Yeah, sure. We describe ourselves as a creative content agency with commercial edge and offer actually a really broad range of services. So I kind of put it into 3 buckets. One of them is content marketing, which would be strategy, thinking through from content audits to actually looking at the bigger play, and also campaign work. Then we do all forms of content creation, audio, video, digital, print. And then we have our traditional custom publishing still, which is still really successful. And that's your magazines and your custom books. I think what makes us different to other agency, I really tried to actually put it into the name. And that's this idea that we're bringing together the head, which is your kind of business smarts, our team, the people, the data, or data, should I say, and the tail. We really respect the craft or the art of content. And we think the result by bringing them together is really smart storytelling.
I mean, you've worked in content for so long. What excites you most about telling those stories for different brands? And do you think that content and how we're engaging with it is always evolving and changing?
It's interesting. I was thinking a lot about this one actually. I mean, the world of content is always evolving. All that's happening is it evolves at a quicker pace than it used to. It's, you know, an old adult. Change is inevitable. And I think Hardie Grant Media's recent repositioning as a full servicing marketing agency really highlights how we also evolved too. And that's part of what's really exciting about my journey. I never stay still. My career develops and evolves as well. I look back to when I started as a little editorial assistant with a snapper in London, and let's say print ruled. There was no social media and people were willing to wait a full week to watch the next 25-minute TV episode.
Oh, true. We've lost that ability, haven't we?
Yeah. Look at the world now. We have 4.6 billion internet users, 3.6 million people on social media, and in Australia alone, 25 streaming services.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, content has to work so much harder to win and to keep attention. I think now you have to think about how it will work across all channels in a really holistic, integrated way before it could be more siloed. And I think the other really big change, and I think it's really exciting, this is the need for authenticity and for a genuine dialogue between whether it's a brand and their consumer and whether it's a publishing house and their reader. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. And I also personally love in what I do. I'm a people person, love to meet clients, get to know clients, and we're in such a privileged position to get under the hood of so many different businesses and actually really understand what's going on. And also, how can you not like working in content? I mean, if you're working in quality content, you're just making the world a better place.
Oh, that sounds so lovely.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I wondered if you love the creating side more, or do you like the metrics and seeing the results of your creations? Like how does that all fit together for you? Or do you prefer to put all the data off to someone else and you just get the report and go, oh, that did well?
No, I've got quite an interesting profile compared to a lot of people, where I did a business management degree. I have a BSc. And so that meant I entered publishing with a very different mindset and had always thought about the commercial side of anything and an entity and the audience in a slightly different way, because the marketing framework was already in my head. And if you want to be fully informed in marketing, you have to have an interest in data. I don't believe you should chase data. And I'm very careful about saying that we're data led. We're not. We're data informed. And that's the difference. Because actually the best storytelling is where you bring data together with what I see editors having and journalists, and it's the golden gut. So what I found working over the years, there'll be people who know the answer because their gut tells them it. But in what we do with clients, we need to be able to prove it. But that's where you almost go to find the data to back up what we know intuitively.
Oh, that's interesting. I do think sometimes journalists and sort of editors come to content with a different mindset because they have that sort of gut feeling, and maybe that's because you're out there in the field. I don't know. Do you use a lot of freelancers, don't you, at Hardie Grant and Heads and Tails? What sort of skills are you looking for?
Yeah, the freelancer thing's really it's an interesting one, because I would say we're going to use more and more freelancers going forward, and I think it's one of the real benefits of actually how the world has changed in this. It's cost prohibitive to have people on staff who might be working with just one client in quite a singular way, but also we're really looking for people who can dial up and dial down depending what campaigns are running and what other things are happening. So yes, we use a lot of freelancers. We like to genuinely have long-term relationships with the freelancers. If they enter into some of our relationships, we will have them on a contract as opposed to having anything where it's just a one-off. But I actually sort of threw this question to my team, because obviously they're the one who are at the cold front of working with freelancers day in and day out. And what was lovely, everyone is open-minded and agree that they're always looking for new and diverse voices. So, and in different niches. So I guess one of my messages is, don't worry if, you know, there's sort of a lot of people who might think that content needs to be all shiny, happy, clappy, but there's a real niche of specialist content where you can earn very good money and be very in demand. And I'd probably really encourage people to work out and building up one of those niches so you become the go-to on something, whether it be insurance. And I think a real journalist, like, some people are like, oh, that's boring. It's not. All industries have good stories in them, and you bring the same approach to those stories. It's just sort of like the sector is different. For our more traditional work, we always go back to the journalists who follow a brief, create a positive rapport with anyone they're interviewing. It's very important to us how our suppliers present to the world, file their copy on time, and just include very well-researched information. I'd also say one of the skills we look for increasingly is just people who really understand digital best practice. And I'd encourage any freelancer now to really start trying to understand keyword research and use it in the pitch, as well as understand how to integrate it into their writing.
Wow, that's great advice. And what about in terms of how freelancers should work with agencies? I mean, I tend to think that agencies have campaigns and their content calendars that are all locked down in advance. So do you prefer a freelancer to reach out to you and say, hey, this is what I do and can I be of help to you? Or would you prefer that they look at what you're already doing and then perhaps pitch in an intelligent way around what you're already doing?
Yeah, I mean, we find with the campaign work, there's such a fast turnover that we go often to people we've been working with before. And it's why people should continually reach out. It's not that you can ever have enough quality freelancers in your books. Our editors have very busy inboxes. So unlike in a traditional publishing model where your editor might just work on one title, some of our editors might work with 3 or 4 different clients and be managing really different work for them. So what they all say is they love a combined intro and a pitch. And if you don't have an active website, get one. But if you haven't got an active website, it's key to give examples of your relevant published work. So even if your pitch isn't successful, it really helps give an idea of your storytelling ability, your tone of voice, and your understanding of our channel, our client, and your approach.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to really reinforce the idea of a website. We're always horrified when writers don't have them, even though we push it a lot, but people, it's something they always plan to get around to and they don't. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a bells and whistles one at all. That's the thing. It's very simple. I mean, there's just so many great sites now with Wix and others that, you know, you can literally sit there and whip it up in an hour and 2 days later change it to something else if you really want the whole theme of it to change. I think, when it comes to be able to promote yourself and keep a portfolio, it's really important.
Yeah, it's just having that digital footprint, isn't it?
Yeah. I get the Hardie Grant newsletter too, which is fantastic. And I always think it's a great way of seeing good tips for writers. And I guess if somebody wanted to work with you, I think I took that tip from the masterclass you did. And so I signed up to it and I have a good understanding of what work you're doing, what new clients you have. Would that be a good way to get in touch with sort of an agency? Or a lot of agencies have things like that, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think have a look around and sign up would be great. I mean, the lead, I'm always so impressed when we get into the content planning of that. It's our strategy director runs it, and she is a brain beyond belief. But it's got a really interesting take, and where it is really interesting is it shows a really well-rounded view, because we have the editors and the designers working in our part of the business that approach things a slightly different way to Sherpa, which is our sibling agency and a video production company, and Tide PR, who is our PR and influencer management company. And we actually work on a lot of accounts together. And it's really interesting to see how they might approach a problem differently and see content differently as well. Yeah, no, I definitely recommend it. And that's one of the really good ways of getting more work with agencies. You know, personality and politeness always goes a long way with every introduction as well. So sign up in person, send a message if you see something interesting. I know, Rachel, you reached out to me once about a story saying how interesting it was and why, not just sort of a vanity metric. So yeah, I think it's a great way.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. Well, on the flip side, are there any mistakes? I mean, so many journos are moving into content and content marketing now, and you obviously see a lot of, you know, the mistakes that they might be making. Are there any common things that you see journalists do where you think, you could be doing that better? Or
yeah, well, I'm going to revisit the point Lynn was making earlier. Do not tell me you can write for digital if you haven't got a website.
Okay.
And I also wanted, on that point, is I understand when you're doing a transition, if you've been 100% print journal, you're like, I haven't got any work to publish. Then it doesn't matter. Blog, like create content of your own, your storytellers. So it might be looking at, you know, being a freelancer in lockdown. It might be doing a guest contribution for you guys, anything, but actually using it as a training opportunity. That's what I say, because I remember I've been a freelancer twice in my career, and I remember at the time just thinking like, oh, but I haven't done this, I haven't done that, and I was like, you know, I'm just going to spin it. I built this website, it shows that I know digital. This was like 15 years ago. And I'm literally going, oh, is it blue? Blue's nice. Yeah, we'll do that. What you do actually is if you go through the process, it means you start studying it. And I mean, that's what I really recommend is, and this is going to sound really harsh, your career will die if you don't evolve and keep learning. The world changes, and that is in any industry. And it's so sad to see some incredible talent just almost give up because, you know, I make jokes to my team about it's not rocket science what we do. We don't save lives. But there's always been this very strange, and I mean, I can blame content marketing for this a bit. I think there's a lot of terminology that's used and expressions used that make it sound all very kind of different. It's not. At its root, number one, content marketing exists for decades and centuries. It's just a terminology. It's using content to market. Well, you know, what was a magazine, a member magazine, if it wasn't marketing in content form? We just never used to talk about it in the same way. So I just would like people to kind of break that barrier down. I think there's a fear there that's just, they should get over it.
Yeah. And so important what you said about learning and upskilling all the time, and not just thinking, I'll just stay with what I've always done and then put a desperate message on LinkedIn for that kind of work. Yeah, we see that a lot too.
Or turn into the, you know, when everyone gets together and just bitches about how the industry's changed.
Yeah.
Rates have dropped. I'm like, well, I can't believe salaries have dropped too. It's not a world that you're going to make your millions normally, but I think the other thing, whilst I do say it's not all that different, etc., there is one major difference, and something that my editors brought up as a red flag, and that's not sticking to the brief outlined. When you approach an article as a writer for a content agency, it is different to the approach for mainstream media. There's not the leeway. For content marketing, we have done a lot of work behind the scenes to align that piece of content to a broader marketing strategy, to content pillars, to a frequency plan, to a keyword strategy. So deviating from the brief isn't good for business. So if you feel the story could be written better or the angle, just get in contact with the editor. But normally when we're commissioning, if it's for digital, definitely, is we would give you keywords to work in, and what points need to be included. But I think that's a really important difference that freelancers should understand. Having worked in both worlds, I always remember writing for magazines. I could be like, hey, it was amazing when I was interviewing this person, they wanted to talk about this, and I think that's great. In our world, it's a little bit like, yeah, that's nice. I've been agreed with the client. There's no more billable hours. Let's go with the story.
Yeah.
We had freelancer Michelle Bateman on the podcast last week, and she talked a little bit about working with agencies can be a great sort of experience for freelancers. And I think that's because a bit about what you were saying about that you do the heavy lifting in terms of like strategy and planning and everything. And also, I think for journalists or any sort of writers, you do a lot of the client liaison, which takes away quite a bit of stress. And if you're not used to that client relationship, it's a great way of getting used to it and understanding that in brief. Do you think it's a good way of transitioning into content marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very much down to individuals. So I know someone like Lindy is absolutely amazing with clients and would be, water off a duck's back to have some of those conversations. But I think working with agencies is really good. It can give you a really regular stream of work and a great learning experience. But I would say as long as they're reputable and they treat you right and they pay you right. That is something that I remember the first email I think I ever had with Rachel was about pay rates in Australia when I first moved here, because I wanted to pressure check what the market was. And client liaison, yes, it is very time consuming. I think it disrupts the creative process quite badly. And as a freelancer, like, using up time for that means that's another story you can't write and get your dollars in. But I also think the feedback loop can be really quite challenging and upsetting sometimes, and we can manage all of that. So it takes that stress off, so you can just concentrate on the creative work itself.
Yeah, compliance departments are really fun to deal with. Content marketing.
I mean, and the other thing is clients are the best and the worst part of my job.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's, you will build the most brilliant relationships, and I am really lifelong mates with some of the clients I've worked with. But there are times where you have just one change in a key position and suddenly everything you've built up is just gone overnight. You have to read, and it's really subjective sometimes. So it's like, this isn't how we talk about it anymore. But that's always been how you've talked about the brand. So we shield our freelancers from the moments.
I think freelancers still feel that heat a little bit, and that's really been a huge learning curve for me. Instead of dealing with one editor, you're suddenly dealing with perhaps 5 stakeholders, and things can change, or your work might be suddenly edited in a way that you haven't had it edited for many years because you're a senior journo and you're used to it going through. And so it can be a tricky learning curve, I think, for journos moving into content marketing.
And I think particularly for the more experienced ones that have had very long-term relationships, very steady ways of working. Yeah, it's not a challenge. I think it can feel offensive, but it's never the judgment. If you follow the brief and nails it, any changes won't be due to the work that's being submitted.
Yeah. Good to remember.
Oh, we've all met clients who just take particular words or colors or stuff like that. And that's what you do. And we don't have to do that sometimes.
I think the best one is actually often you have a brilliant rapport with a marketing director or a comms manager, everything's seamless. And then the CMO walks in the door, or someone in the C-suite sees something and goes, I didn't quite like that there were, something in that shot, or, the music in that 10-second video. And it's like, oh,
I know. The cold finger of dread grips your heart.
They start saying, I really hate to pass this on.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
How has COVID and the pandemic affected your business generally?
Generally, there's definitely been highs and lows across the business. I'm not going to deny that. Our custom books unit has had a phenomenal year. We've published some amazing work for various brands and names, but the media part of the business has had a much more challenging time. One of our biggest clients was Virgin Australia, and all work had to cease back in April last year when they went into voluntary administration. Phoning the team to tell them the news and stand them down was the worst day of my career. Everybody was just so upset because we had just such a genuine love for the airline, but also for all the people who work there. They're a phenomenal group of people working at Virgin Australia, and how they work with their agencies is so inclusive and is such a great hallmark, I think, example of how you can get the best out of your agencies. So yeah, that was really sad. We definitely will be working with them again in the future, but obviously they need the border situation to be sorted out before that's fixed. Yeah, so ups and downs across the business. We're very fortunate as a business. We're much larger than me, and much larger than my agency, and much larger than Hardie Media Agency. And something that we're really proud of working with all our clients, everyone, is we're just very financially stable. We've been sort of, I'm not going to say conservative because we really invest. We've launched a new, publishing brand on the other book side of the business, but I would say our financial management is exceptional.
So as a company, this is going to be an interesting one. I don't know how much you're still working from home or not, or how much of the team is sort of spread out, but have there been things you've liked about that work from home thing? Anything that you really loathed about it? And any surprises or things that you're going to keep going in the future in terms of how you operate?
Yeah, I think you get different responses whether you're in the Sydney team or Melbourne team. To watch what those guys went through in Victoria last year, I think half my team needs treatment for post-traumatic stress, to be honest.
We all do.
They're all sitting there going, God, Sydney side is a really soft.
Yeah.
Falling apart. It's only been 10 weeks, people.
Yeah.
Personally, I am a people person, as I said before, and I genuinely really like all my colleagues across the business. So I just miss sharing ideas in person. I come from a magazine background. I still love looking at a cover on a wall and options. I love sitting and looking at a video edit and trying different music or takes. And I really miss the laughs and the incidental chats that happen in the kitchen as you go to kind of make a cup of tea and get a biscuit. I also really miss the regular trips to Melbourne. So in my position, our team is spread across Melbourne and Sydney, and I was down there every month. And I've always loved that city ever since I came over as a backpacker 20 odd years ago, and went to the St Kilda Music Festival. But there are positives. We're spread out all over the place. We're all 100% working from home. But I think that COVID has actually brought the team closer. And actually, even with some of our clients, I'd say closer, because we've really, obviously, you speak to them whilst they're at home and know where they live. And it's really removed a sense. We used to have very much and operated as the Sydney office and the Melbourne office. And that has completely gone. We are all in this together, and we all operate as a united team. And we have a lot more accounts where we might have a designer working on it in Melbourne, the editors in Sydney, the production is in Sydney, and the account management is Melbourne, because it just doesn't matter. And what you can do is you can put the right people into the team instead of going, oh, it's a shame that Joe doesn't live in Sydney. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. And that's something that will really follow through and actually only build on in the future.
Oh, that is interesting. I'd love to hear about any of your favorite tools and apps, because we always find something really interesting that Rachel and I, it's perfectly selfish, we add to our little arsenal. And particularly anything related to content that you'd be lost without, or some good ways of keeping a remote team, focused and efficient.
Yeah, so I guess there's two different parts to that. The first is I feel like we've got a tool or an app for everything. I remember when I had my confidence crisis, I think we'd introduced 6 different platforms in the 11 months I'd been out having a child and going, get my head around these. The things that I use or the team uses, I know just day in, day out, wouldn't do without. We use Microsoft Teams a lot, obviously for chats like this, but also for our project management communications. Keeps things out of email brilliantly, keeps documents in a place that all sits centralized. Really old school. Every person needs to love Excel and a spreadsheet for content planning, budgeting, understanding, and just where things are tracking across the board. Trello for community management. We use day in and day out. Everybody uses Instagram for inspiration. And what's really interesting is I'm not an Instagrammer. So if you were to join me on Instagram, I don't even think I've done a single post. I look at Instagram constantly.
Yeah.
So I engage with it in the sense of liking things, looking and understanding it. I just sort of haven't got headspace for it as a channel, but I look at it more, depending on the audience, actually, Facebook also, in a way that I do it for work. And I know it creates a lot of inspiration for all our team, both visually and from subject matter. And then another one we use day in, day out in our team is SEMrush, and understanding the keywords and what's performing well to inform not just how to write an article, but the planning of it and the ideas. And what, again, I find really interesting is I've had this view of, we'll be planning a print product and I'll say, have you looked at SEMrush? And someone's like, it's not for digital. I'm like, it's not that people think differently online to print. Like, if they're searching for it, it shows they have an interest. And I think that's another thing that people need to understand. It's getting over this channel, and it's really just understanding people, which is why I think that's what the best journos are. They understand people. And Lynn, that's what you're saying about the sort of like having the golden gut or the intuition. It's because they study people and don't sort of chase the story. The story is the people. So yeah, there's some of the apps we use. When it comes to keeping the team focused and efficient, I have to say it's not something I struggle with. My team is exceptionally focused. They're really dedicated and disciplined by nature. What I have found is I've got much greater concern about everyone balancing their life and home whilst we're in this situation. I think so many boundaries have been brought down, and I feel when we had the short burst last year, it was all very novel and people could survive. And this not knowing has really sort of fatigued people. There's a very different feeling this time around. So, in the past, there was a lot more, let's have lots of face-to-face meetings. Whereas now I'm saying to people, hey, in our whip, do you want to have it as a walking whip on the phone? Let's just get out and get walking. Yeah. Everyone knows what I look like. I don't look like. I think walking and talking relaxes people. I think it brings a different way of thinking. So that was definitely one of my recommendations. I also have a list of my team. Actually, there's a print copy, little analog copy, and I randomly pick every day someone to call out of the blue and say, how are you doing? Yeah. Because I think, if you start everything being formal as well, you want to catch people in moments which you see actually they're not okay. So yeah, that's something else. I think mental health has been a really big challenge at this time. Yeah, I love that walking whip. Yeah, I didn't think of doing that, but it's a good idea.
Although you and I do that a lot, Rach, don't we?
Oh, we do. Yeah,
we do a lot of chatting and working through things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, that's a really good one.
And the other one I've introduced, I sort of say to colleagues who lives within the 5K of each other, meet for a coffee and a walk. Yeah, they're not against the rules. It's like, see someone. What's great is that they might not actually be a close colleague, so they might be in a different part of the business, but you're like, hey, Anna lives over in the inner west, why don't you go for a walk with her? Yeah. So I think that's another thing that we've really tried to encourage, because I think you can slide into quite a weird place quite easily if you don't interact with anyone, particularly if you live on your own. Yeah. Other than your very small sort of like group of friends. Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. And also what you said about how you're very much into Instagram just as an engager of it, but not as a, posting your own images and curating your life on there. And I think there's probably a lot of people like you out there who love it, but don't actually. Yeah. I think you have to be, if you're going to be in this world, the minute Snapchat launched a few years ago, I was on it. I didn't do it, but I wanted to understand it. Yeah. And you have to stay curious. Yeah. Otherwise you will get left behind, or you will only be able to talk to you'll start just talking, it sounds bad, you'll start talking to like an aging market. Yeah. Yes. And then, yeah. That's really so true, isn't it? Because I found myself going, I don't want to learn reels and I don't want to do that. And, but you really have to, you just have to, don't you? If you're in that world. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we have talked the leg off a chair with you as always, and we could just talk to you all day. We're coming to the end of the podcast, but just wondered if you had any final words for our listeners, perhaps journos who might be looking to move into content, anything you'd like to say to them? Absolutely. My key bit of advice is immerse yourself in the world. Read about content marketing, sign up to the marketing industry newsletters, Umbrella, B&T, etc., and follow the key content agencies on LinkedIn and social media. That way you already see what type of work's being done by whom and who's won what new client, because that's the perfect time to introduce yourself with any relevant experience.
That's a great tip. Yeah. Oh, Claire, thank you so much for all your thoughts and wisdom. It's been so good to have you on the podcast. We knew this was going to be a cracker, Rach. We did.
We did. Oh, we didn't ask Claire where people can find her. Can people find you? Do you want them to track you down?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say first up, please follow Heads and Tails on LinkedIn and on Instagram. But personally, reach out to me via email on LinkedIn, or we can pop my email into the details of this and reach out. I'm happy to share anyone's details with our content team. I know following the masterclass, there's some really, really good follow-on questions, and I'm always happy to give my time.
Thank you
That's
so much.
So generous. Thank you. Thank you. That's been great, Rach.
It has. It's been a great episode, and really appreciate your time because, as we said, we know you have a gazillion things going on. But yeah, we'll put all those details into the show notes, and we are just going to take a little break over the school holidays. So we are going to be back. When are we going to be back, Lynn?
We're back on the 4th of October, Rach.
With a brand spanking new episode.
And a new guest.
And a new guest.
So many exciting guests we've got planned too.
We do. So we will see you all then. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Bye, Rach.
Thanks for listening. Bye.